Welcome to College Football Monday, a Sons of Saturday live show brought to you by Jack and Coke. I'm your host, PB. I've got Sam Jesse here, but we're also being joined by Coach Holmes. Mike, thanks for being here, man.
Man, my pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you guys.
Yeah, dude. We're going to get into a lot of fun stuff, a lot of the national stuff. That's what we do here on College Football Monday. It's our national show. We're going to tell you everything that happened this past weekend, along with a heavy dose of what the Hokies were up to down in Durham. Sam and I have already dropped Too Deep on the feed. So if you want the full game breakdown, go to that. It's already there. However, we're going to pick Mike's brain on some thoughts about that and UVA when we do VT Corner a little bit later. To kick this thing off, though, Sam, I need a cheers from you.
Yeah, so my cheers is not college football related, actually. It's college basketball related. It is Feast Week, and it is one of the better weeks of college sports of the year because not only do you have rivalry week for college football, but you also have the Thanksgiving matchups for college football, and you have amazing college basketball matchups earlier in the season. UConn, Memphis was an insane OT game today. The Hokies are playing right now. It's not going so great, but oh well. We have great matchups. Maui Invitational is always great. There's a few others. So cheers to Feast Week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I haven't poured my beer yet. The as promised Bull City.
Yeah. Sam, do me a favor and make sure you're on your new microphone you got over there and not on your laptop.
You magic ears, Pete.
There you go, man. I hear you loud and clear now. Okay. I just wanted to say before we get anything, hop in the chat, like the video, subscribe, all that stuff we ask you to do every week. Liking the video really helps us out. Any questions you have, we'll add them to the stream. Mike, I did want to start just with you real quick. What's the latest content that you're doing for the Sons of Saturday? I know you got a couple different things you add to the site every week.
Yeah, so I just earlier today, I recorded the next 10-minute tailgate for the UVA game. Something a little light, and it's a Virginia-inspired Chex Mix. You know, the baked Chex Mix with the seasonings and stuff. Really good. Then also did a Boulevardier, because we're playing the French. So I did a bourbon cocktail with a little bit of a French twist to it. So, so do that. And then on, I believe, Wednesday, I'll have the Hokie Hitter out, usually waiting for the full game video to be put up on YouTube so I can put some clips up there with. But yeah, we're going to be going over some of the defensive stuff that we went on. I'm going back and forth between that and trying to break down some in-game scenarios, kind of like playing Monday morning quarterback and saying, hey, what probably should have been done and a lot of that stuff. I know we'll talk probably that in the VT corner, but yeah, I'd love to get some insight on that too.
Yes, 10-minute tailgate's a really fun piece. Mike puts that out on YouTube, and there's an article on the website that goes into a drink and an appetizer usually for the upcoming. It's related to the upcoming team that we're playing, and it's one of my favorite things that comes out on our channel every week. So make sure you're checking that out. Quick plug there. We're going to get into the Week 13 recap. Here's my tease, gentlemen. Down goes the SEC. Ole Miss, Bama, and A&M all take losses. Penn State and Boise escape to keep their playoff hopes alive and in good standing. Ohio State and Notre Dame flex their muscles as favorites. And Arizona State hands BYU their second loss in as many weeks and maybe in that driver's seat in the Big 12. We'll see this weekend because we'll get into all those little Big 12 scenarios a little bit later on. The coaching carousel continues to spin. Tulsa has opened up. Central Michigan has opened up due to McElwain announcing his retirement. So I think we're up to almost 15 openings.
Do you know who the interim Tulsa coach is?
Switzer.
Ryan
Junior,
Switzer.
Ooh.
That's pretty
UNC
cool.
wide receiver from like 7 or 8 years ago.
And
He's
former
really young.
Commander, right? Wasn't he on the Commanders for a second? Or Redskins?
Commanders and the Steelers, I believe.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Young
Steve
coach.
Spurrier Jr. is their OC. Steve Spurrier Jr.
Wow.
is their OC.
The run and shoot. That's fun. So we're still kind of waiting for that first big opening to drop. And if you ask certain podcasts, I know the Cover 3 has talked about this, where with the house case still waiting to come down, we might not see as many openings this year as normal.
I think you could see a lot of athletic departments try to play it by ear a bit going into this offseason with the craziness of the transfer portal, and there's like 3 different signing days and whatever. I don't think athletic departments are as worried about making a coaching change and the roster just is gone, right?
Mhm.
Because 1, if you're bad, your roster might just be gone anyways. And 2, you can build it back up a little bit quicker. So I would expect most athletic departments, especially big dollar ones, to take it a little bit slower than they have in recent years.
Signing day is in 8 days, 9 days. It's next Wednesday, the early signing day, early signing period, whatever. It starts on December 4th this year. They moved it up to kind of get it a little bit away from the Bulls, but not really. That's just crazy to me. So anyone who is going through a coaching change, that opening could very well overlap early signing day, which is kind of nuts. But let's move to the games. Ohio State makes easy work of Indiana, 38-15. After Indiana scored, Ohio State's D just completely shut it down. It really wasn't competitive after the first quarter, Sam.
No, it wasn't. And to be honest with you, it felt like Ohio State was really underperforming in that first half more than Indiana was playing good. I mean, Ohio State had a couple opportunities to score touchdowns and couldn't, but you saw it start to happen, and you saw Indiana start to be like, wait, we're not pulling away from them. We're not getting those easy touchdowns. We're not, getting a sack every pass attempt. And it started to really become a uh-oh moment, I think, a bit for Indiana. We talk about those a lot, but then also for Ohio State. I think the mystique of Kurt Signetti in that Indiana team started to wane, and they were like, oh, it's Indiana. And then they just throttled them. I think if it's better weather, like it was pretty cold, rainy, classic Ohio November day, I think Ohio State could have put up some pretty big offensive numbers in that game because they slowed down and ran the ball there a lot in the second half. And I know that's what they want to do, but they could have put up 45 plus in that game.
It probably also helped their defense, though, too, right, Mike? I mean, Ohio State had 5 sacks. It was Rourke's worst game of the season. And it's funny how when you have these teams that are just kicking ass on offense for so many weeks, when they play a competent defense in Michigan, they struggled. And when they play an elite defense, they just couldn't do anything at all.
Yeah, it was very interesting to watch the overall flow of the game. I think I told somebody in the chat, maybe it was even, I was talking with Billy or something, but I said, listen, this was they may go out 14-0. Like Indiana may come out like a ball of fire. They're going to have 15, 20 plays that are completely scripted. And you watched Ohio State, they were playing off coverage. They were playing, 7-8 yards deep on the edge. They were leaving everything open in the middle, and Rourke was just able to kind of pick his way downfield, running in spots. As soon as that first script went out the window, and now granted, Indiana played pretty good defense too at the beginning, and they got the turnover on the red zone. They got a bunch of they got a pick, I believe, on the second drive. So there was a lot of good things that were going on for Indiana, but when that defense just really started to crank things up, you could not stop them. You saw the deficits in the offensive line that Indiana has. You saw really some deficits, some of this, and some of those guys, there's a reason why they were originally G5 guys. They just didn't have the overall game to be able to hang with a team full of 5 stars.
Yeah, and then you had the Caleb Downs punt return on top of it, which is just an embarrassment of riches to not only have him on defense, but to have him returning punts. A complete game from what might be the best team in the country, Sam.
Yeah, and you're starting to see the promise of Ohio State is starting to come into form here. This was a roster that a lot of people thought going into the season was the best in the country. They thought they had the schedule that played out. It was really just hinging on that Oregon game, and they lost a close game there. But it does seem like they're playing a little bit better right now. I think that we should get Ohio State, Oregon again in the Big Ten title game, correct?
It's,
If
I mean, as
if
long as
next
they
week goes,
beat Michigan, yes.
yeah, that's going to be really, really interesting. First and foremost, like I think Oregon's speed on that turf field is going to be pretty fun to watch. But this does feel like a slightly different Ohio State team than what we saw. I am still a little bit worried about Ohio State's offensive line.
Yeah, because
I think,
they weren't tested
right.
like they will be in a Big Ten title game or in a playoff game potentially, and they're just getting used to having to play the other guy at center. Now, the gentleman that they did play had experience from last year, right? So
He's probably like a 4-star, 5-star guy. Like he's
yeah.
probably really good, but I think some of Indiana's defensive numbers with like their havoc rate and their hurries were a little bit inflated because they were playing teams who had to throw the ball to come back in the game against them. So I'll be interested to see how they match up with Oregon, especially since Oregon should have Jordan Birch back, their best defensive end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
will be interesting matchups.
Ohio State. That's always where Ohio State got in trouble in the past too, was when they had to go play the Georgias and the Alabamas of the world. The defensive lines for those guys would just eat them up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll see what happens in the Big Ten title game, or I guess even next week. I mean, beating Michigan is not a foregone conclusion. They've won a couple in a row against the Buckeyes, so we'll see what happens there. Florida beats a second-ranked team in a row. Sam, your Swamp Puppies, they proved it, man. They upset Ole Miss 24-17. Ole Miss played a really bad game.
Mm-hmm.
They like, I
Yeah.
know the Florida deserves credit. They've been playing better. They're the home team, but I still like, even if Florida had covered, which I thought was a too large spread at first, I still thought Ole Miss would pull out the win. Like I kind of just felt like they pull out the win, and they played so bad. Let me go to Mike on this real quick. Did you get any eyes on this game? Did you watch the tail end of this thing? Because that was laughably bad from Ole Miss.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of the way
Lane Kiffin.
I'm sorry. I want to say Kirby Smart for a second.
I knew what you were thinking.
For the way Lane Kiffin manages end of game scenarios, he seems to be kind of overwhelmed by the moment a lot of times. And if he can't out athlete you and he can't be a front runner, they really, really. But I think the biggest story is DJ Lagway and what Billy Napier is doing over there with, they stuck with him. They said, hey, he's going to be our coach again next year. And they had that first week against Texas where he came back and they really struggled. And then you see the last 2 weeks, everybody on the teams rallied around him. I mean, nationally, you probably couldn't see the vision because of how bad they played, but they had one of the worst gauntlets of anybody in the country. And that is a rabid fan base that expects good performances. And I think they really were able to get once they got Lagway back and they didn't have to play that third stringer anymore, you saw everything begin to click with that offense. And, if it's a dogfight of a game, I don't like what Ole Miss can do. They have to be out in front early and they have to get out and run. And if they have to play from behind, they're really going to struggle. And Jackson Dart, a march down the field guy. He's a big explosive play guy.
Yeah. And Sam, I thought his stats looked a lot better than the way the game went, particularly because at the end, when they're trying to tie the game, he throws the interception, doesn't stand up and replay. Very next play, he throws another.
He was shook. He was completely shook. And what I looked like a lot of times was it looked like his wide receivers were kind of running these option routes down the sidelines where they could basically either keep going or stop and hitch and like sit down in the zone. And I think it was probably 4 different times was miscommunication, and 2 of them were interceptions. And then his other interception, he just threw into triple coverage. Mm-hmm. Like horrible, horrible throw. So I really do think this was somewhat similar to the Ole Miss offensive performance we saw against Kentucky, where they got some big plays, but once they faced any sort of resistance, all of a sudden those big numbers go away.
0-3 in the red zone. Like they couldn't score in the red zone. They were down there 3 times, came away with nothing.
Yep.
3 interceptions or 3 turnovers for Ole Miss. And that's how Florida was able to win the game despite being outgained by 120 yards. I mean, it was.
We'll get to playoff conversation in a bit, but Is this like a resume booster for Texas?
Because they wiped the floor with Florida 2 weeks ago.
The floor with them. I know it was their backup quarterback. It's in Austin, but like, hey,
it's funny
this
how
looks pretty good.
Could be.
Florida like found themselves before that Texas game a bit against Georgia, I think it was. And then they go down to Texas. I think I picked them against the spread. They get wiped off the face of the earth. And then they go and beat LSU. And now they've beaten Ole Miss. And just what a huge win for Billy Napier and that staff to weather the storm of this season and this schedule and to now be going bowling. I mean, good on them. And they're probably going to get a 7th win this upcoming weekend against Florida State. So really nice out of the Gators. And see Ole Miss. Like if we're talking about 3 lost teams potentially getting in the playoff, they're not one of them. I really would highly doubt it. So let's move on to Bama. Their offense was overwhelmed in their loss to Oklahoma, 24-3, guys. The most perplexing of the 3 SEC results, if you ask me. The Bama offense only scoring 3 is a shock. However, I don't know if you guys had eyes on the game, but there was a play where Ryan Williams scored a spectacular touchdown for Alabama, and it got taken away due to a penalty. And Mike, I still don't understand what the penalty was. And so they didn't even give him like another replay of the down.
Yeah. So they said he was covered up. And so Ryan Williams was at the point in a trips formation, and they had 2 other guys 5 yards away from each other and 3 yards back. And then they claimed he was covered up. So it was illegal touching. So it did not look right to me, but again, I'm not on the field. I can't see what they see. I just looked at the still from the replay of that.
DeBoer was going nuts because they called that covered up, and maybe you know the rule on this, but like they didn't get another shot. Like it was 4th down, and the touchdown didn't count, and then it was Oklahoma's ball. So like I don't know. And there was something that went wrong because DeBoer lost his mind, and that's not like
it should have been. As with any offensive penalty, they either get the down over again, or if they decline the penalty, Oklahoma declined the penalty, then the play stands. So because it's a formation penalty, but that was really strange.
There was something that happened, and maybe like the TV cut away from the next play. I don't know. I just feel like something went wrong, but we can stop talking about that play. I just thought if Bama had got that touchdown, which seemed legit, it might have sparked a little bit of a comeback. And this result, when you're trying to make the playoff, like 24-3 matters, right, Sam?
Yeah, we thought Alabama was sure in. We talked about how easy the end of their schedule was compared to the other teams. We talked about how good they looked. All of a sudden, like we thought that was the Oklahoma team we thought we were going to get this year. Like that kind of low-scoring, defensive-minded team, really good at home. Didn't really get it until this week. And if you're Bama, I don't think you feel very safe right now because 3 losses, like there's going to be a lot of teams with 1 loss that are going to look better than you right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit scary if you're Bama.
I don't understand Milroe in this game. Like I know Venables can dial up some different stuff and really shake people at times, but 0 touchdowns, 3 picks, and a 15 QBR from Jalen Milroe. Like he was just a disaster. And Jackson Arnold outplayed him. I know he only passed for 68 yards, but he had 131 rush. They ran for 260 as a team. They held Bama to 234, which is just crazy. 9 tackles for loss to Oklahoma. The D was lights out. And like you alluded to, Sam, the power of Norman. This was a perfect example of why they don't lose many games at home, right, Mike?
They don't.
Yeah.
All right. Texas A&M falls to Auburn in 4 overtimes, 43-41. Auburn got out to a 21-0 lead. We were going back and forth about this on the chain, and it looked like they were just going to take it to A&M. A&M comes all the way back. They take a 31-28 lead with 4 minutes left. Peyton Thorne would not be denied, though. Of all people, Peyton Thorne, he also played better than Jalen Milroe on this day. And he drives the Tigers down the field, 15 plays, 75 yards for the game-tying field goal. And then overtime was just – it was what it was. But before the game, the line alone, Mike, it had me thinking – I think it had everyone thinking that this was a possibility. And Hugh did it.
Yeah, I thought Auburn. This was a game that Auburn always wins. They late game in Jordan Hare. It's a great place to be in general, as most home SEC environments are. But that they always do one of these every year when they are a sub 500 or 500 team. They knock off somebody that they shouldn't, and it was a great game. They did everything right. They executed it exactly how they needed to execute. They kind of tailed off at the end and let A&M come back. But in overtime, A&M really shot themselves in the foot. The dropped pass in the second OT, they gave them the third OT that gave them the victory. That was or was it 4? Anyway,
it was 4. Yeah, it went to 4.
Yeah, A&M dropped the ball. The receiver for Auburn made a great play on the play prior to that. So they executed how they needed to. Peyton Thorne finally looked as advertised. Finally figured out how to throw the football, and that was the game where Mike Elko said it himself. We're looking forward to Texas. Auburn. They could say that they weren't overlooking them, but they got caught overlooking them.
Yeah.
This was cruel by the SEC schedule makers. Just cruel and unusual. And
someone's got to play at Jordan Hare.
The ultimate schedule loss here for Texas A&M. Yep. And you kind of, I think this was also a product of Texas A&M has had some pretty bad injury problems this year, especially on the offensive side. They've had a lot of their skill guys go down. I think defensively, they are pretty beat up as well. They have a lot of guys playing hurt. And I think it's kind of caught up to them towards the end of the year. Credit to Auburn for playing tough and defending home turf, because that place is just a voodoo black magic palace. It is ridiculous. But this is like the rigors of a 12-game season in the SEC. I know a lot of people talk about it, but they look like a pretty beat up football team right now. I got to be honest. I don't like them going up against that Texas team, especially what Texas has in the line of scrimmage. Like, I just think this A&M team is pretty beat up right now.
They are. It's also the rigors of just not having that premier go-to quarterback. I know Reed's stats were okay, especially towards the end, but I don't know. I mean, that's what's held me back on A&M the last couple of weeks, like wanting to put them in my playoff and wanting to say they're going to beat Texas, is because I don't know what they're going to get out of the quarterback position. But Quinn Ewers didn't look great against Kentucky either. I mean, he looks a little tender-footed out there with his ankle and his oblique and everything else he's got going on. So it's anybody's game. It's in Kyle Field. I could see either team winning it, but I tend to agree with you, Sam, that defensive line is going to be a problem for A&M, the Texas defensive line. All right. As I said at the top of the show, College Football Monday is brought to you by Jack and Coke. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke. You can see the can on your screen next to Mike's face down there in the bottom corner. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke. The #1 cocktail in the world is now available in a can with Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola Zero, Cherry Coke, even Jack and Ginger. Make sure you hit up your local grocery, convenience store, liquor store, beer store, and grab them ready to drink. And as always, when you're having Jack and Coke, please drink responsibly. I want to ask you guys about the Big 12. We're going to go to Arizona State. I said they're in the driver's seat for the Big 12 title game, potentially. They beat BYU 28-23. Scatterbo was awesome. 147 rushing, 3 touchdowns. They were up 21-0, Sam.
They might be my favorite team of the year right now. Like, for me, like, I'm in Sam Jesse's college football awards for 2024, team of the year, Arizona State. They play incredibly hard. They are really inventive on offense. Their defense has much, much improved. This was a team that I was really high on them coming into this year. One of the few people that was. However, I was totally wrong about why I was high on them. I thought this was going to be a grit, ugly team, win close, like kind of a vintage Michigan State type team, right? But they aren't. Like, they make a lot of explosive plays. They create a lot of havoc on defense. They play really good special teams. They kind of have a home field advantage right now in the desert. I just think they're building a really good program. They're playing really good ball. And I don't think I would favor a team in the Big 12 against them right now. Like, they're playing the best football out of anybody in the Big 12.
Yeah.
You say that, but at the same time, Mike,
Kansas.
I don't think Kansas
Well,
is
Kansas
playing
isn't in
good
it,
football.
but they are good.
They're playing good football right now. I just don't like Scadaboo's not your home run hitter type. Like, he's a grinded out, like, to get 147 yards, he needed a lot of carries, but
Mhm.
they do have, for being in Arizona school and being from the Pac-12, they do kind of play a punishing brand of football, which I do appreciate.
They have a physical mentality to them.
Yeah.
That's definitely for sure. We saw that last year, but
Mike, did you see the end of this game? How?
Yeah, I
didn't
was
see
about to
this,
say.
so
It was absolutely incredible. First off, on Scadaboo, he's an all-star. He's all-star-esque. He's not quite the same stature, but he runs behind his pads just like.
He just doesn't have as big a shoulder pads as all-star.
yeah, needs the neck roll. Right?
Yeah,
but at the end of the game, he's trying to. I understand. I think he thought he was thinking too big picture. He was thinking too grandiose. Like, I mean, there are many ways to kind of handle that situation, but
they're trying to run the clock down, is what Mike's saying. They were trying to run the clock, and they were like running backwards to waste seconds. And they got to fourth down.
It would have been the worst bad beat of all time if they had just went all the way back and took the safety. Like, it would have been the spread was 3.5.
True. Yeah, I was on the minus 3.5.
Yeah, so it would have been like the worst bad beat ever. And I understand what he's trying to do, because I mean, I've been in situations where, hey, it's fourth down, clock's running out. You take the punt. You tell the punter to just go sit in the corner and wait till the very, very end, and then just step out of bounds. Take the safety and then kick off and run the clock out. But because that's better than giving him a chance to return a kick. So I understand what he was. That was an absolutely insane ending.
Yeah, they bungled it, whatever you want to say. Like, they screwed it up, and then they had to get all the students, because then there was 1 second left. All the students had already come on the field. They had to get all the students off the field. Took like 20 minutes.
And that's the second time that's happened to him this year.
Really?
Second time. It happened to him. Was it Kansas State? It happened to.
No,
there was
Utah.
another game,
Utah,
where they had to put 1 second back on at the end.
I do remember that now, yeah. And Kenny Dillingham, right? He's going crazy afterwards and everything. But yes, big win for Arizona State. BYU did try to come back, and they came damn close. I was impressed with the comeback because I thought it was over. But Arizona State gets the win. Penn State squeaks by Minnesota. I want to talk about this game quickly because Minnesota was up, but somehow it still felt like they were getting very lucky. Like, they were up 10-0, but they only had 282 yards of offense in the game. Penn State chipped away. It was 16-19 at the half, and then Singleton and Warren put Penn State over the top in the second half. Minnesota kicked a field goal to make it 26-25. Mind you, they were losing. So they kicked a field goal to go down by 1 with 5 minutes left. Well, they never got the ball back because Penn State ran a fake punt, which I don't know if it saved their season, but it solidified this game and very well could have saved their season because it seemed like Minnesota had a little bit of momentum at that time.
Yeah, Minnesota's a better team than what people have thought this year. I think they lost that opener against UNC, and then a lot of people wrote them off as not a very good team. But they've been playing really good football lately. And another thing about this Minnesota team is they're so classic PJ Fleck, gritty, gross. Like, they want to play these low-scoring games in bad weather. They're not going to be a team who scores 35 plus. So it was an ugly game, and they were getting the ball to bounce their way. But at the same time, that's kind of how they play ball. So a bit of credit to Penn State for, playing at that level in that environment. Minnesota had minus 0.17 EPA per play. That's only 18th percentile over the past 2 years. They weren't very good creating havoc plays on defense. They weren't good running the ball. Penn State was the better team in this game, but that being said,
they didn't.
How do you not win this game by more? Like, right, if you are outplaying them, the other team isn't playing great, and they need all these plays. Like, why aren't you winning by more?
But we both said, like, going to Minnesota in November.
It's tough. It's tough.
Like that, just getting the win by 1 point is what you need to do.
However, doesn't it look like we're setting up for Penn State to lose their first round game?
Oh,
like
absolutely.
it feels so obvious at this point.
Did you have any thoughts on this, Mike?
Yeah, I think the one big thing that I saw in that was PJ Fleck coached scared and coached to hope to win the game versus trying to win the game versus a top 10 team. At that point,
which you wouldn't expect out of Fleck.
No, and I love him. I think he's a really good coach and does some really good things. He's a little gimmicky at times, but he's very. Normally, I would say in that situation, because it's very similar to Virginia Tech. You get 5 minutes, you get a team the ball with 5 minutes left, you're not getting it back. It's something where it reminds me of Mark Stoops against Georgia early on in the year. He had an opportunity to go for it, to continue the drive, have a chance to win the game, and decided to punt it away. And Georgia went back down and scored. So
and you can't do that against the elite teams.
No, you got to go for it, and you got to be aggressive, and your kids will appreciate you at least being aggressive. So, when
they kicked that field goal, they lost. I mean, that, like, when you kick a field goal to be down by 1, like, you lose, like that, and they did. So, they covered though, and that's all I really wanted out of Minnesota.
But also, great fake punt call by James Franklin on 4th and 2. Amazing. And
it worked. Stones. It worked so well. They got like 50 yards out of it or something. Let's talk 1 second about Notre Dame and Army before we get to VT Corner. This was just like the Navy game. I mean, they just went out there and they smacked the crap out of them.
Yep.
They have really played like take no prisoners since the NIU game. Like, Notre Dame is playing at an extremely high level.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, I was on here last week wearing an Army West Point sweatshirt, right?
You were, but you actually wanted to take Notre Dame in the game.
This went exactly how I thought it would. And the trip, that option offense is great to take you up maybe 1 or 2 levels when you're talking about like closing the athlete gap. It's not going to take you up 3 or 4. And what you've seen in these games, and Notre Dame's done this the past few years against option offenses, is their lateral speed on their defensive line basically takes away any outside pitch opportunity you have. You can't just outrun a fat defensive tackle anymore. Like, he's going to catch up with you. And it's not going to work at the highest level with these service academy guys. Credit to Army. Like, they're going to have a really good season. I think they'll have a better shot against Tulane, but the
only way they were getting yards, Mike, was when Daly was just battering ramming himself into the line. Like, that was their only play, because like Sam said, it didn't seem like the pitch was open.
Yeah, when you run that lead follow, you're going to have one extra hat for the guys that are defensive guys that are in the box. And I personally, I love the option offense. I'm an old school run the ball first guy, but again, Sam mentioned it perfectly. It's just different levels, and there's different levels of athlete that you recruit to be able to go to the service academies, and your big boys aren't quite as big. And I really was hoping that Army would have a shot. I really was. I was hoping they'd be able to sneak something through. And because it's a great story. I still think they can beat Tulane. I think the Army-Navy game is going to be one of the better ones we've ever seen. And I feel bad for the kids, but I think they're going to use that. I mean, they're in the Army. They're going to use that as a point of rally, and they're going to be good for the rest of the year.
Notre Dame could very well be the 5 seed in this thing.
Yes, and South Bend is, over the past probably 6 or 7 years, one of the best home field advantages in college football.
And it's cold as hell there.
It's cold. It's disgusting. It is gross. The town is
It'll
gross.
Probably snow.
It'll probably no, it's not going to be that pretty. It's going to be like what are they? It's
going to be cold. It's going to be gray, and it's going to
look like one of these
your life.
Yeah. It's not very loud either. It's just they play really well at home. And so I think that could be a sneaky, like, it's Notre Dame and they're a really good team. So I hate saying sneaky, but they're a team that nobody is talking about to have a shot at the national title. And they're going to have a shot. Like, they're going to be in the mix there.
Riley Leonard was nearly perfect in this game. I know he's not putting out like eye-popping numbers, but 10 of 13 through the air for 2 touchdowns and a 94 QBR on low yardage. Like he just did what he had to do to win the game. And he was dynamic when he was with Duke. He just had some injury problems at the end of the year last year. And
he's much better in that system now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's playing as good as any quarterback out there right now. All right, let's go to VT corner, fellas. A little bit on Duke here, and we'll primarily ask Mike because me and Sam already gave a lot of thoughts last night, but they were a bad offense coming into last week's game, into Saturday's game. Duke we thought they might score 14, 17 points on us because our defense, by and large, has looked pretty good this year. Give up occasional big play, but they had looked pretty good. Well, guess what? In this game, they gave up a ton of big plays, and Malik Murphy put up the 6th most passing yards on the weekend of anyone in college football. Pankel had the 3rd most receiving yards of anyone in college football. What was going on with the defense, Mike? Because I know when we were texting, you were saying like they're doing this, but maybe they should try this, but maybe that didn't work either.
So the first 2 plays. Number one, the very first touchdown on the first play, go back and look at Antoine Powell-Ryland coming off the edge. He got hooked around the neck, no call. So that gave him time to step up in the pocket to make the throw. Also, our corners, they were 8 yards, but they were flat-footed. So they didn't get into their back pedal, they didn't get into their drop early. I think they were anticipating a run play on the first play, as 70% of the teams tend to do. And we just got burned. We got burned on the edge. That second big touchdown, there was a push off on the edge, and that was very badly missed. But again, don't really blame Lovett there. He's in position, but you can't help when someone handed shove to the numbers. It's something that you really can't work around. The biggest thing that I saw though were the adjustments that we made in the second half. When they started moving the ball a little bit in the second half, we came out, our adjustment to playing man was to play cover 2. So we were playing corners up pretty close. We were playing 2 high safeties, and we were leaving those corner route gaps, and we were leaving stuff in kind of that intermediate range, just sitting wide open the entire time. And when we did bring people down and we did try to take those gaps away, that's when they gashed us on the run. Our defensive line, very undisciplined on rundowns specifically. We pass rush on rundowns. When we slant 5 yards upfield and we give running lanes and cutback lanes. So it's putting our linebackers on islands where even if you had Luke Kuechly back there, he's not going to do open field tackles 100% of the time because you're not making that guy stutter step. Defensive line guys on rundowns, they're force players. You're trying to force them to change direction one way or the other, inside, outside, whatever. And then your outside linebackers are your spill guys. You're trying to get those guys to even work more to the outside. Your corners on runs should come in and funnel everything to the middle so your safeties can make the play, or your outside linebacker or your linebackers can come in and make the play. We're not doing seemingly a lot of those fundamental things. And I don't know if it's because we're being way too aggressive. We're too worried about stat padding. We're worried about making sure that we get the TFLs and we get the sacks and we get the hurries and the pressures and all the stuff that looks good, because that's, in this age of NIL and money and stuff, that's the type of stuff that gets you to that next level. A lot of times we're not necessarily playing the play. We got a bunch of guys out there that are playing individually, it seems, to get those stats.
I've said that maybe not so much lately, but I've said that about our defense in general this year, where I just feel like the units all play like they're individual units and not one defense. And it seemed to come up in this game. And you mentioned the cover 2 thing. The safeties really struggled in this game.
Yeah.
That was part of the reason why that strategy didn't work very well.
Yeah, this was the first game. I thought this was the first game where the safeties looked like worst case scenario. Coming into the year, it was one of the weaknesses on the team, and it hadn't been that bad. But this was the game where they just weren't there. And what sucks so much about this defense and what is so frustrating is if you look at them on the whole, every play of this season, they've actually been a pretty darn good defense, like top 30, top 25 in the country in a lot of these big metrics. But it's only 85% of the time. The other 15% of the time, it's like they're in la la land and they give up all these plays and guys aren't paying attention. And Mike, we texted about it during the game. The defensive line slants are killing them because they're running away from the ball. Like their backs are turned to they're slanting so hard. Our defensive tackles' backs are turned to the running back. And now we're having one-on-one situations, to be honest, one-on-one at best, because a lot of times if Woodson or, if Woodson or Brumfield are having to play kind of like over the tight end on the outside, there's nobody there. And that's why it looks like we don't have a middle linebacker playing. It's because we slant so hard and they just run right up the middle, right past our guys. And it just seems to be a kind of a combination of players taking plays off and not executing, as well as you're not fundamentally coaching these guys and scheming these guys based upon what the offense does well. We talked about it pregame, Pete. They got one wide receiver. All they want to do is hit Pankel. That's their only hope. And we just let them go. Let him go. Like how you didn't have Dorian Strong shadowing him man coverage the whole game is beyond me, because you've done that for every other top tier wide receiver you've played this year.
Yeah, they had some other weapons, but I definitely hear on Pankel, and he got his numbers. That's for sure. Mike's got to get out of here in a few. So I wanted to just kind of end on UVA. Little couple of questions about UVA, Mike. Where does they sit in your hate rankings? You're an old school Virginia Tech guy. We were in school just about the same time, but like, are they above or below Miami, Pitt, West Virginia? Like, where do they come in?
Always be number one. There
number
is
one?
no. I'm a fifth generation. Like, so it was. My grandfather would leave. If he got change back at a store, would leave the nickels on the counter because he just didn't want to put Jefferson in his pocket. Like it was like that's how bad it was. So there is nothing that I can't stand more than that school.
Okay.
Which stinks because Charlottesville's a great town. I
love Charlottesville.
It's a fun town.
town.
I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's but yeah, that's number one overall. Got to be.
So you still get excited for VT UVA, even though both of these teams have been, let's just say mid. I won't say bad, but they've been like right down the middle of the road the last decade.
Yeah, both teams are not very good right now. We've actually had some bright spots, but I still remember the days when George Welsh would come over and just stomp a mud hole in us. So just in the difference in the overall environment of the fan base, it's wine and cheese versus beer and hot dogs. It's just a completely different attitude and mindset. Like last week, they were trying to rally people to wear pearls and suits and ties.
I saw that.
Weird.
It's a soft school. It's a soft institution. They deserve nothing good.
Their last two best coaches quit on them. Just up and quit. Their basketball coach quit before the year because NIL is too hard. That's what you get down at UVA. And so I'm so ready for this weekend. How do you think we match up in this game? Just give a quick one before you have to exit on us.
Honestly, I think it'll be all determined on who plays quarterback for us. I think I saw it when Schlee got that hit, which by the way also should have been targeting. That was badly missed. That guy came in and essentially speared him in the side of the head. But anyway, if Pop is playing, which I think he probably should, Pop Watson versus Anthony Calandria might be must-see television as far as athletic skill guys that can make some things happen that might be a little inexperienced. As far as their offense, I don't think they can move the ball on us consistently. I think they're going to turn the ball over a few times. I think we may get 3 or 4 turnovers. I think there's going to be a chip on a lot of these guys' shoulders because some of these seniors on our defense, their draft stock may depend on this game.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
they can go from a second day guy to a third day or not even being drafted guy. What happens, you know, if you don't get to play in a bowl game. So I think it'll be really. I think defense will come out and play hard. I hope Tootin can be about 85%, which is a lot better than most backs at 100%. And if our receivers, loved what Allie Jennings did against Duke, and if he can stay active, if Felton can somehow figure himself out, and Tyler Bowen can go back to being creative again. I know we ran the reverse and Aiden Green scored, but it was a very vanilla day on the play calling front against Duke for Tyler Bowen. If he can get back in his bag and we can do some stuff, I honestly think they're not better. We're 20 points better than them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think we're a much better team. It's just a matter of you can't come out and get down 14-0 like we did against Duke. You know,
yes,
Duke's a lot better than UVA. Don't get me wrong, but if we want to win, you got to play 4 quarters and beat their brains in like last year. And at least we have that one data point of Pry doing that in this rivalry. You're headed to dinner. Let me put Mike's playoff picks on the screen just so we can do this. And Sam we'll break down ours in a little bit. But one interesting thing that Mike has in his playoff picks, if you're watching on YouTube, is South Carolina making it from the SEC and only one team from the ACC. So you believe that they get that win against Clemson and it's enough to pop them into these final rankings.
Yes, because of the I think they're going to look at the strength of schedule of SMU, and I think that would be the kicker. So if SMU loses to Miami, I think the only way that changes if SMU beats Miami, they're in, and then Miami takes that or some sliding down happens and Miami is off. I think Cam Ward has got too much of a name. Miami's got too much of a name for them to be left out. But a 2-loss SMU with their strength of schedule would leave it open for South Carolina to get in there over Alabama because their last big showing in primetime, they got stomped by a really, really bad Oklahoma team.
Yeah, and Alabama beat South Carolina, but when every team has 3 losses, is head-to-head out the window. And I think that I agree with the sentiment that it has to be because all of these teams says beat one team that beat another team that whatever. So it's interesting, and I'm glad you did it because it's going to spark some conversation with me and Sam when we do ours a little bit later. But for now, Mike, we'll let you go. We appreciate you joining us on College Football Monday, and your insight is always appreciated, buddy.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you guys do. Thank you for all the info, for all the stuff online and in the Virginia Tech space. Y'all do a great job. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Mike. And make sure to just
Mike.
leave your computer open. Let your audio finish uploading for me. So when I get done, I can grab it. All right.
10-4.
All right. Peace, buddy. All right, Sam. Let's get to, were we done with VT Corner? We wrapped that up.
Look, if we're looking ahead to next week, I think they match up well with UVA, but I don't know if it matters. Like they got to be ready to play. They got to be ready to coach. I don't care who's quarterback. Tootin should be good to go. That's the most carries, 19. That's the most carries he had in a game since the Stanford game where he had 21. He should be good to go. So I think the Hokies, the vibes are unbelievably bad right now. Like
for both teams.
Dude, like late 1920s stock market vibes type down. But playing at home, playing at night, must-win game. Absolute must-win game. And I think you're getting your guy back to 100%. So I like the Hokies to figure it out, to somehow, some way figure it out.
I do too. And Mike's confidence as a 5th-generation Hokie or whatever he just said he was makes me feel good too. I like hearing from Coach Holmes and hearing a little bit of confidence from that end of the spectrum there. Let's take a quick beer break before we get to the other notable games and nuggets from this past weekend and give our playoff picks. Sam, you mentioned this beer last night. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's the Bull in the Bottle Shop from Flying Bull Beer Company in Durham, North Carolina. Picked it up on Saturday evening. Flying Bull's a pretty good one. They're a veteran-owned brewery
Nice.
out of Durham, very Durham based with the Bull. I said it on the last show, but like everything in that city is Bull this, Bull that. Pretty good stuff. It's a New England IPA, so it's kind of that classic hazy, orangey. It does have a little bit more of like brown ale aftertaste to it than a lot of New England IPAs do. I don't really know what that is, and maybe I'm just making that up in my head. But
It could
it's
be the
pretty,
type of hops that it's made with. It could be
yeah,
different things.
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. If you're a New England IPA fan and you see this, it has a pretty funny can with like a very perplexed looking Highland cow with
You're
wings.
the cattle expert. I don't know if you guys know this about Sam, but he knows his cattle.
I do know my animals. That is a fact. It can't all be Virginia Tech football up in this head. So it's pretty good beer if you're in a New England IPA and you see it and you're making a 6-pack. I'd recommend grabbing one.
Nice. All right, I'm on my holiday
Heck yeah.
shit over here. I'm drinking a fireside chat.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing right now, Sam. We got the orange in the background on YouTube, having a little fireside chat. Winter ale with spices and cocoa nibs. This is a 21st Amendment. You guys probably know 21st Amendment from that watermelon beer that they make. What's that? What the heck is that called? Hell or High Watermelon.
Okay.
That came out a long time ago, and it was like a hot summer beer. I can't think of any other beers they make right now, but this is really good. I like the can. Looks like a present. The cocoa nibs come through. I'm drinking another black beer here, Sam. I had a black one last night. Doing another very dark beer here tonight. This is a classic winter warmer. We're talking 7.9%. Warms you up, easy to drink, but still tastes like beer. You're not getting, it's not like a chocolate beer. You know, it just tastes like a good ale. So I would recommend the Fireside Chat from 21st Amendment.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard about that one. 21st Amendment also is one of those breweries that you see pretty high scores on Untapped across the board.
Yeah, they do pretty well. I don't know. Where's 21st Amendment from?
I'm not
You know
sure.
off the top of your head?
I'm getting DC vibes.
It's not on here, but if I locate it, I will let the listeners know. All right, other notable games: Texas, Miami, Georgia, Tennessee, SMU, Clemson, Mizzou, South Carolina, all won easily. The only note I had about those teams I just ran off, well, one, Georgia and UMass was just
That was a weird one.
They just messed around with their food in that one, but was the fact that Ewers did not look super good, and Kentucky will do that to you, but
he's hurt.
Yeah,
he's hurt. Like do they start Arch Manning on Saturday night?
I'm surprised they didn't go to him.
I mean, is that really I can see it now, Pete. Arch Manning comes in and leads Texas to a national title, and ESPN has their content for the next 2 years.
Could you even imagine a Manning leading Texas football on a magical run to the national title?
We're thinking too small. Arch Manning, back-to-back Texas football national titles.
Oh, come on.
Because he has to come back next year.
It's true. He does. I still am like so flabbergasted that he's even at Texas and not starting. Like the fact that Arch Manning is sitting for 2 years in college is absurd to me.
I mean, he's making all the money. He has one of the best offensive coaches as his head coach.
I know, but still. Like, he was Dylan Raiola coming out of high school, and Raiola got to start right away, and all these other guys get to start right away, and maybe some of his hype was based on name, but he is actually good.
No, yeah, but Pete, back-to-back national titles with Texas for Arch Manning.
We'll see, man. We'll see. I cannot wait for the Texas A&M game. We'll pick it later. Kansas continues its hot streak. They beat Colorado 37-21. Devin Neal, the running back for Kansas, been there for a minute. 207 rush yards, 4 total touchdowns. Daniels and Shador at quarterback both had great days for each team. Shador 3 touchdowns. Daniels with 189 pass, 72 rush. Colorado defense just had no answers for Kansas the entire day.
Yeah, this was I almost took an Iowa State to win the Big 12 future on like Friday evening, and I didn't pull the trigger, but I really should have because everything broke for them. And this Colorado team, I think they're much improved from last year, but you still see a lot of the same issues. And I never really thought that they were a top 12 caliber team. It just seemed like the cookie was going to crumble that way.
They were
for
playing
them.
really well,
but now they're pretty much out of it. And
do you love how Kansas is just screwing everything up for the Big 12?
This is what we thought we were going to see from this Kansas team. They brought everybody back. They brought their coach back, and they just had a really tough start to the year.
Would have been nice if this is how Tech's year went. You know, beat a couple of ranked teams. If we had beat Clemson, like that would have mirrored what Kansas did. Like they turned around a poor season and they've made it memorable. So good for them. Boise State played a terrible game against a 2-9 Wyoming team, but they won 17-13. Genty went for 169. He eclipses 2,000 yards on the season, 27 rush touchdowns for Ashton Genty. One extra when it comes to receiving touchdowns. But what's going on? Why? Like Wyoming sucks this year. I know it was in Laramie. It's cold weather, but like you're a playoff team. You're struggling with Wyoming this year.
Well, first off, at Laramie at night, very tough place to play, especially late in the year. However, I wonder if the pressure is starting to get to Boise State because they know all they have to do is win out. And they know they're so much better than their opponent. So I wonder if you are starting to see them, the pressure starting to build more inside the numbers. I also wonder if they're kind of holding some stuff back here or there, if they're playing a little bit more base defense, if they're not open up the whole playbook, trying to dial it back a little bit so they have some element of surprise going into a playoff game. I do wonder, but they also like the Mountain West title game is going to be tough. I know it's going to probably be at Boise, and I'm going to guess it snows in Boise all the time in early December. So it'll be a big home field advantage, but they still got to win these games. At Oregon State, big upset win over Washington State for the Pac-2 title. Yeah. I can't either. I mean, Oregon State was down to absolute no names. Like they had walk-ons starting. Their injuries have been terrible.
And weren't they losing by a certain amount of points at some point? Like I thought I looked at the score and it didn't look good for them, and all of a sudden they won.
Yeah, it was a great comeback win, a great home win in Corvallis. Washington State, they might have a few guys with one foot out the door. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was a heck of a game. I'm just looking at the thing because I had that fact that Oregon State won, but I forgot about it in all the other games that we're talking about tonight. My point on Boise, I think, would be: would Oregon, who they played very close, go to Wyoming and ever have anything close to this result?
No, but I also think the mentality of the team is probably a little bit different.
And that was my other side of that, is that no matter what conference you're in, when you play conference games and you're used to seeing teams, sometimes you get dragged down into the mud. And like, it doesn't matter that you're like way, way better than them. It just happens. And unfamiliar teams or teams from a perceived bigger conference. Yes, no, Ohio State's probably not going to Wyoming and winning 17-14 or 17-13, but they're not in their conference. If they were, maybe they would. Like it changes everything. Like,
yeah, and that's a rivalry game.
You're on, you play up or you play down. It's just how it is.
Yeah. And that's one of their biggest rivals, Boise State and Wyoming.
And Wyoming's played so bad. Like this is their last chance to really do something special.
Yeah. So,
all right. Iowa State beat Utah to stay alive in the Big 12 race, 31-28. I think you did mention this already, but inexplicably, Utah had a lead with 5 minutes left, but Iowa State put a clutch drive together. Rocco Becht was pretty darn good in the game. Utah just has no offense. The only reason they were in this game is because they got a pick six and a special teams touchdown.
I don't have the numbers. I promise I will look it up. I'll probably put out a tweet. But the number of pick sixes Utah has had over the last decade is a staggering number. I don't want to misplace it, but it might be like double the team that has the second most. I'll look it up and I'll tweet it out.
And we are hearing about Whittingham today. He said he's going to make the best decision for the team, whether he'll stay on or leave.
I really don't know what they're going to do here because they have a pretty good young crop of players and a good recruiting class, and they always do pretty well in the portal. I don't know what they're going to do with Whittingham, man. I don't think
you can't have a lame duck coach though, because even if he stays here, like it doesn't seem like he's in it for the long haul.
And he's one of those guys who will always kind of be on retirement watch from now on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a bit curious to see what they do there because that's a great job opening if it does.
Illinois and Rutgers. I don't know why I'm bringing this up on College Football Monday, but it was a crazy ending. It really was. And Illinois goes in to the Train Horn Stadium and comes out with a victory because they threw a touchdown pass with 4 seconds left, down 1. And I kind of love it because screw Rutgers, but Rutgers probably should have won this game. I don't know. That's all I got. It was just a cool ending. That's all. Let's go to the ACC, Sam. GT beat North Carolina State in a crazy Thursday nighter, 30-29, with a backup quarterback.
Yeah. Georgia Tech looks really good. Somehow that's a really good win for Virginia Tech. I think Georgia Tech is one of those teams that, again, they're exactly who we thought they were going to be heading into the season. They are up and down. You never know which team you're going to get. They played this game really well. I think NC State is just finding ways to lose in some of these games. And I wonder what they do in Raleigh this offseason.
Is Haynes King going to be back for Georgia this week?
I don't know.
Yeah, because if he is, that is all of a sudden a really compelling game.
I mean, even if he's not, I kind of like Georgia Tech plus 18, 19,
it's a big
whatever
spread.
it is. It's a big spread. Yeah.
So that might indicate King is not playing. But SMU crushed UVA. BC crushed UNC. So we gave UNC really surprising flowers, but
that's on me. That's my bad, Tar Heels fans. That's on me. I went on 2 podcasts and talked about how good North Carolina was playing. Stupid.
Louisville crushed Pitt as well. So we had a bunch of one-sided affairs in the ACC. And we had Syracuse avoiding what would have been a really bad loss against UConn. They led easily most of the game. McCord threw for 470 in that game.
Yeah. They're going to give me like Texas Tech vibes where they're going to put up stupid offensive numbers on their way to a 7-5 season.
Yeah.
Like that's what Syracuse is going to be for the foreseeable future.
And you know who's going to be seeing McCord in their nightmares this week? The Miami secondary.
Yeah.
Because they got to go to the Dome, and that is going to be one of the better games of this weekend. My final note on the ACC, Sam, was an ACC classic. Cal beat Stanford, made a huge comeback, win a wild one, 24-21. Stanford was up 21-7. And I was about to tweet out something that's like, Stanford's really having a nice end of this year. And then Cal scored, and then they scored again. And they've had a tough year, and this is a good win for them.
98 yards with my boys. Print the shirts now. Good for Cal. Like, they deserved it. They've played really hard this season. They've had a lot of tough losses. So good for them to get this rivalry win. But Stanford is a team that's playing much better in the last few games. And Pete, I know we've already set the reminder for like sometime in July, but let's put it again. Stanford win total next year over. Lock it in. Lock it in. Sure. They have a lot of young talent, and they're getting better each week.
They are. All right, this is where we're going to do some fun stuff. We're going to talk playoff in a minute. Show you guys Sam and I's playoff. However, before we do that, I want to talk about the teams that have already clinched a spot in their championship games. We've got Georgia. They are playing in the SEC title game. They will play the winner of Texas and Texas A&M. Big Ten, Oregon has clinched. They will play either Ohio State, Penn State, or Indiana. But if Ohio State beats Michigan, who would you want to see most go up against Oregon? Do you just want to see the heavyweights, or do you want to see Oregon have to play Penn State?
I want to see Penn State. And I think I want to see Penn State because I want to see what Penn State looks like against those athletes.
Mm-hmm. That would be a really fun game to watch.
It would be a fun game.
They're all going to be fun, but
I don't want to see Indiana. I'm sorry, but you ain't ready.
You're
and
right.
he ain't
Scratch
ready.
that. They're not all going to be fun. I'd like to see either one. Like I just want to see Penn State play someone who I think is truly elite. And other than Ohio State, they haven't done that, and they got that at home, and they didn't play all that well. They came
Mhm.
close, but they didn't play all that well. In the ACC, SMU has locked up their spot. They will play Miami unless Miami loses to Syracuse.
Pete.
What's
This is
best?
cruel.
What's
This is
best for the ACC? The bet, like
Miami being good is always going to be good for the ACC. I will stand by that.
but Clemson being the former power that they are, if they beat South Carolina, who everyone thinks is kind of good, and then wins the ACC, like SMU's might still get in. Like it might not matter.
Yeah, I just think from a brand perspective and for a like part of the ACC's issue has been Miami not being nationally relevant.
Yeah, no,
In
we
terms
need
of
we
wins
need
and
another
losses.
nationally relevant team.
Yeah,
sure.
and I think Clemson is already there. Like Clemson has proven they're there, and they're going to do their weird little thing with recruiting and portal, and they're going to be weird about everything they do, but they're going to win football games. Miami is the team that is a wild card every single year because you never know what you're going to get on the field. So Miami being good, I think really, really helps this conference.
Yeah, no, I think for the ACC's sake, I agree with you. For fuck Miami's sake,
it would be hilarious.
Go Syracuse.
It would be funny.
All right. In the American, that is the only title game I think that has completely locked up. That's Army versus Tulane. That is set. I think I like Tulane in the game, but I could see it going either way.
I don't know who I like in that game. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the Mountain West, Boise is locked in. It's going to be UNLV or Colorado State. I don't know who beat who in that. I assume UNLV beat Colorado.
I don't think
State.
they played.
They didn't play? Okay.
Yeah, let me check real quick, but I don't believe they played.
And so that will be decided this week. And then I think last year they came down to like a weird tiebreaker thing that screwed San Jose State, right?
Yeah, they did. So I'm looking right now at Boise State's schedule. Oh, I'm sorry, I went back one too many. I'll let you know here in a second.
You need to go to UNLV's schedule.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
In Conference USA,
they have not. Yeah,
Jacksonville State is locked in. They will play Liberty, Western, or Sam Houston State. I've really been on a Western kick. I like what Western's doing. I think they can win the conference and that they can get in that game, but we'll see. And in the MAC and the Sun Belt, no one's locked in. There's a lot of different balls in the air in those conferences. Yeah. So if we want to go to the real chaos, we'll go to the Big 12 because 4 teams are sitting at 6-2. 4 in the Big 12. They're a 4-way tie, which is possible, would mean Arizona State and Iowa State get in. So if Arizona State wins and Iowa State wins, they're both getting in. There are 5 teams sitting at 5-3. So you've got 4 at 6-2 and 5 at 6-3. Baylor can still make the Big 12 title game. Like that is crazy. And so there's no way for us to even diagnose the various scenarios. Like
it's pretty much every team except for Houston, TCU, Kansas, and that's it.
Yeah, because even WVU,
technically is still alive.
Technically, but I don't. They might lose on every tiebreaker, but it doesn't matter. There's more or less 8 or 9 teams alive for the Big 12 title championship, which I'm not sure that's what your Mark wanted when he said it's the most competitive conference.
He got exactly what he asked for.
But yeah, that's pretty wild. All right, College Football Monday is brought to you by Roback. You guys know Roback, the performance activewear designed for those who crave activity. It is Christmas gift buying season. You can use code TUDIBT to get 20% off your order of the great polos, the great hoodies. I seriously love my Roback stuff. It is some of the best clothing that I own. Whenever I wear it, my wife says, "Wow, you look nice," which means I don't look like a complete slob, which it feels really good. And when I'm wearing my Roback, I feel confident. And it's that activewear that doesn't look like activewear. It looks nice.
Yeah, it's I got it for most of my family a couple years ago for Christmas, and it wins Christmas morning. They put on immediately. It's immediately your favorite sweatshirt. I'm a big fan of the sweatshirts. The joggers. I don't have a pair of the joggers. I need to get some. But apparently the joggers are pretty elite as well.
Yes. And they have those little dresses that are so desirable. All the girls love them. They're super comfortable. You just drop them on. They might even have the built-in shorts. So use code 2DBT for 20% off your order at Roback Crave Activity this holiday season. Playoff 12. All right, so me and Sam actually had the same playoff 12. Odd Mike's real quick. You can see he's got Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, South Carolina. In the ACC, he's got one team. He's got the 4 Big Ten teams. He's got Notre Dame, Boise, and Arizona State coming out of the Big 12. Sam and I both have only 3 SEC teams in, which is probably a mistake, Sam.
Yeah,
I with all the unknowns, I couldn't put a 4th one in because I just didn't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I agree with you there because it's almost like this is crazy to say. It's easier for the committee to put in Indiana than it is to put in Bama or Ole Miss or South Carolina. Now, Mike had South Carolina in there, and I understand that South Carolina is playing really good football. However, they lost to Ole Miss. They lost to Alabama. Sorry, I had a sneeze coming there.
Yeah, I saw that. You stifled it nice and good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Experienced podcaster, I guess. I just don't think their resume stacks up head to head against the teams that are going to be vying for that 4th SEC spot. So you can't just put them in because you think they're playing better at the time when they got wiped off the field by Ole Miss and Alabama beat them. And they have the loss against LSU. And that LSU loss isn't looking great right now. That's a win Alabama has as well on the road. So I just don't think their resume stacks up compared to some of the other SEC teams that will be vying for that last spot.
So both Sam and I have Miami and SMU in. And that's what Saturday did for the ACC, is it gave us a shot at 2 teams and perhaps even 3 if there was a little bit more chaos that took place. So we'll keep an eye on that. But if the ACC were to win some of these rivalry games, like Louisville beats Kentucky, Georgia Tech somehow miraculously beats Georgia, Clemson needs to beat South Carolina, that will boost our standing so much.
So if, like, let's say Georgia Tech beats Georgia, right? Upset.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia is then in a must-win SEC title game.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like Georgia could be and then if Georgia wins that, do they knock out another SEC team? I just think it's going to be really tough for the SEC to get 4 teams in unless you have Notre Dame loses and SMU or Miami lose.
And what's funny is, Sam,
man, I don't see it.
If Notre Dame were to lose, I would think they're out. But a 2-loss Notre Dame with a win over Texas A&M and a 10-win Army team potentially, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Crazy.
They might leave Notre Dame in there.
Crazy stuff.
Big 12's only getting 1 team at most.
Yep.
And that's going to be what we both think is Arizona State, but it could be Iowa State.
I was really close to Iowa State. I like Matt Campbell in a big game over any of the other coaches right now, but Arizona State's playing the best football, so I went with them.
What I think is interesting about the Indiana thing is that they lose that game. They don't look competitive versus a playoff caliber team. And yet, because of what the SEC did, we're leaving them in. But there is the very real possibility that the committee just decides, no, Bama's getting in over Indiana. They could put a 3-loss Bama over Indiana. And I'm not it would be hard to argue necessarily that Indiana is better than Alabama.
Yeah, but at some point, what are you even rewarding at that point if you put Bama in there? Congratulations, you beat some teams, but you lost to the good teams. Alabama has played 2 good quarters of football all year against good teams. They had a good first quarter against Georgia, and they had a good first quarter against LSU. Other than that, when have they looked like a good football team this year?
I'm with you, man.
They haven't.
Let's take a look at the SEC teams, though, that have 3 losses. Who is the most deserving of that playoff spot among Bama, Ole Miss, A&M, or South Carolina? Which of those 3 loss teams, Bama, Ole Miss, A&M, South Carolina, in your opinion, would be the most deserving of getting in?
If A&M beats Texas, A&M has a good shot for it because their losses would be close loss to Notre Dame, close loss to
No, they got
Auburn.
whipped. They got whipped by South Carolina, didn't they?
They did get whipped.
Yeah, they did.
No, you're right. You're right. Shoot, maybe Ole Miss then. That Jordan, like
Ole Miss lost to 3 unranked teams.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe it is Bama. But see,
And
I don't think any of them do. Like, I just don't think any of them have.
I think South Carolina,
resume that you
South Carolina crushed A&M. They would have a Clemson win. They would have beat Mizzou, which whether you like it or not.
No, we're not doing. Pete, you're smarter than that. Pete, I know you are.
And I'll say this also about South Carolina. They would have no bad losses.
That's
and
true.
Both the Bama game and the LSU game came right down to the wire. They easily could have won those games. So I feel like South Carolina does have potentially the most deserving case. But if you're talking about wins, it's Bama. They beat South Carolina. They beat Georgia. They beat Mizzou. They beat LSU. But they just got smoked by Oklahoma. So it's like that smoke job by Oklahoma actually like kills the Bama case in my head.
They only beat Old Dominion by 4
early in the season. I know.
Just
listen.
Crazy.
They're all flawed.
Crazy.
That's why they all have 3 losses.
Yeah, and at this point, like,
all right. So different question.
Yeah,
I asked for the most deserving. We can't come up with one. I think it's probably South Carolina if they beat Clemson, but who knows?
Yeah.
Which team is playing? Which is the best team in your mind of those 4 teams?
The best team is probably Alabama. Like when Alabama's playing at their best, it's Alabama.
It's just so tough when they just looked like they did.
I know. It's weird, but I think when they're playing at their best, it's them.
I think South Carolina's the best team.
Really?
I of those 4 teams, they played Alabama to the last second. They played LSU to the last second and really should have won the LSU game. And they beat the crap out of A&M.
They got waxed by Ole Miss, though.
Did they? Was it a waxing?
Yeah, it was. I don't think they even scored 10 points. They lost 27-3 at home.
And that's why I said this isn't deserving. This is who I think's the best
is such
team.
A cluster.
Who I think is the best team right now, and I think it's South Carolina.
It's such a cluster, dude. You might be. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
but it could be Ole Miss. Like, I don't know.
They are teams like 13 through 16 in my head. Like they're
right.
good, but I think SMU has a better resume. And
and that's what you don't want to leave. You don't, and that's why the loss, whichever team loses the ACC title game, if it's, say it's Miami and SMU and they have that second loss, I think the committee is going to they're going to decide, no, they have 2 losses. This is only 1 extra loss for this SEC team. We're going to put them in over them. Or they're going to decide Indiana's not on this playing field. At the end of the day, they're going to use whatever they want to do to get 4 SEC teams in there. I hope that I'm wrong. And it could blow it up if Tennessee goes out and loses to Vandy this weekend, or if A&M beats Texas and that throws a monkey wrench into everything. Like, that would be even a bigger chaos scenario. And if you threw Clemson beating South Carolina, which would knock down all the people that have beat South Carolina, and it's propping them up, like the ACC can really damage the SEC's case this week. They really could.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if Miami and SMU both look really good this weekend, that's Greg Sankey's not going to be too happy about that on a golf course somewhere in Alabama.
No. And we could go in circles talking about that to death. But do you think if Boise wins out, they will be the 4 seed? Or do you think once it's all said and done, the Big 12, a 2-loss Arizona State's over Boise?
I think if Iowa State wins out and they would have won a game against Kansas State and then beaten a team in the Big 12 on a neutral field. I think Iowa State would be that 4 seed, but I think Boise might get the 4 seed above Arizona State. Arizona State's playing really good right now, but that BYU win kind of is their win this year. If you look at some of the other teams they played, they did have that really impressive performance against Kansas State. But
they beat Kansas State, yeah, and Kansas State righted the ship a little bit, but
yeah, and they lost to Texas Tech as well, which isn't a great loss. I know Iowa State has a couple of
Texas Tech could play in the Big 12 title game.
So, man, I guess so. I just think I think Iowa State would be the team that I think they'd be willing to have made the bigger jump.
Well, here's the problem for Boise too, though. That Oregon State win over Wazoo is not good.
Hurts
for
that
Boise.
Wazoo win.
Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah.
That was Boise's best win, and so I think whoever comes out of the Big 12 is most likely going to have just 2 losses because of just the way it's going to break. Like, it's almost like the teams have to beat someone, and then 2 teams with 2 losses are going to play in the title. So you're going to have a 2-loss Big 12 champ. I think they're going to put them above Boise, and Boise will be the 11 or 12 seed. But I don't know. Anyway, that's my last thing on the playoff, unless you have any more notes.
Nope. I'm excited to see the chaos.
Yeah. This weekend's going to be really interesting. So let's go to the Week 14 games. We've got Memphis at Tulane on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day. It is Thanksgiving week. I keep almost like forgetting that. All I've been doing is podcasting for the last 4 months. Thanksgiving is here. So it's Tulane minus 14.5. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is a really interesting one because Memphis has a good record, but they haven't really been playing great football. So this is kind of an interesting game here. And also Tulane at home, they've been a very good home team. Memphis's pass defense isn't very good. And I think that could be a interesting matchup in this game because Tulane is playing for style points.
Do you make that sound? It's like the tut tut looks like rain from Winnie the Pooh.
Yes, tut tut looks like rain.
But yeah, Tulane. I don't know what I'm going to do with that game because that just seems like so many points, especially with the hook.
It's a lot of points. It is a lot of points. It feels like an over game.
Yeah.
What's the over under for this game?
It's 56.5.
Ooh, yeah, I could see.
That's an overplay. That's an
feels
overplay.
over. Yeah.
All right. Egg Bowl in Oxford. Ole Miss, 26.5 point favorites. Give me the points.
Give me the points. I know it's in Oxford, but give me the points. Mississippi State is a bad team, but they haven't been getting blown out that much.
They were giving Mizzou a little bit of trouble.
They haven't been getting blown out by 30 or anything like that in SEC play.
And I love that this one's on Friday.
Yeah, it's a good Friday game.
Yeah, it really is. Good Friday, and it's a 3:30 p.m. on Friday. You're hopefully off work.
Yeah, you're making one of the Thanksgiving sandwiches.
Yeah,
and you're sitting down. Yeah,
that's a good one. And then we get good old fashioned hate on Friday as well, Sam. That's Georgia and Georgia Tech. That game is at Georgia, unfortunately.
One of my favorite college traditions is the Georgia Tech student newspaper running an entire edition that is just making fun of Georgia before the game. I don't know if you knew that did this.
Yeah. I did not know that.
The front page this year says Kirby smart to wear ankle bracelet during game in solidarity with players.
Nerd's gonna nerd, man. Gotta love that. That's amazing. So yeah, 19.5 point favorites is Georgia. I feel like I want the points in this one too.
I love the points in this one.
Yeah.
Love the points.
All right, we'll move on to, and that's Friday as well. So Michigan at Ohio State, the game. Is it the game or is it the big game?
It's the big game.
The big game.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe the game is Cal and Stanford.
The game is Cal Stanford.
Okay. Yeah, I mixed them up. All right. Ohio State, 20.5 point favorites. These spreads are all gigantic for these rivalry games.
Yeah.
Give me the points.
Yeah. Michigan just dropped 50. Yeah.
Was there a new coordinator that happened there, or did they just get it together?
I think they just figured out if they just run the ball every single play, good things happen.
Yeah, they beat Northwestern 50-6.
Yep.
201 yards rushing, 195 passing. So not an overwhelming amount of yards, but Warren. I mean, none of those stats are crazy. They just sat on them and won by a lot.
Yeah.
I still want the points. It's a rivalry. Give me the points. Tennessee at Vandy. Staying inside the state on this one. Vandy plus 10.5 at home.
Yeah.
Give me the points.
Yeah, but give me the points again at home. Give me the points. Tennessee's offense isn't good enough to like run away with this game, I don't think.
I don't think so either, man. I mean, this is a classic upset spot. Diego Pisampavia has been disrespected all year. Now, LSU did win the game last week.
Mm-hmm.
Good for them. But it was close. I mean, wasn't that a 7-point game? Vandy covered.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Notre Dame at USC. USC plus 7.5. Sorry. Yeah, plus 7.5.
Mm-hmm. USC's quarterback change, I think, has been really good for them.
Notre Dame's going to beat the shit out of them.
Probably, but I wouldn't.
Body blow after a triple option, maybe?
No, they didn't seem to struggle that much. I don't know,
like,
man.
USC is so like not built for this. Like they are.
Well, they almost beat Penn State when Penn State had to make that road trip.
True.
So there's something there.
Notre Dame is used to this. It's a rivalry. Like this, they'll get up for this. I was impressed with USC winning against UCLA. Right, they won that game.
Yeah,
so
they did.
That was a good win. Iron Bowl in T-Town minus 11.5 for Kalen DeBoer's crew. I expect a bounce back, but Auburn just got a big win too. Like,
yeah, this feels Alabama bounce back to me, but it is a pretty decently sized spread.
It sure
However, if I'm looking at some of the matchups in this game, like Auburn's defense hasn't been very good against the run this year. I could see Jalen Milroe and Alabama just running the ball down their throat all game. That's maybe that was Auburn's one their one dark magic game of the year.
But they just played a running quarterback and they won.
But they also gave up a ton of points.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like,
and it's in Tuscaloosa.
It's Tuscaloosa.
It changes things for sure.
Yeah.
God, I don't know what I'm going to do with that one. I feel like I skewed towards points in all these rivalry games, but with the way they just got embarrassed, it's hard to imagine. It
could be of all the rivalry games we've talked about outside of Ole Miss, Mississippi State, because of the difference in talent level in that game. This one feels like it could be the 30+ point blowout game.
Yep. Texas at Texas A&M is the last one we'll talk about. A&M plus 6 at home.
Man, oh man.
That's a tough one to pick, dude.
What's the over-under for this game? I'm trying to find it. I can't find it on this page.
I got
some reason
right here. It is 48.5.
Ooh, give me the over. Give me the over in that.
Yeah, I like the over.
Yeah.
I think I like the over. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty low, 48.5.
I think it is low.
All right. So Texas minus 6. I'm going to stick with it. That's what I thought for a couple weeks now, that Texas would get this win. If I think they can get the win, I think they can win by a touchdown. So I will take Texas. I don't feel great. I think this one could really go either way. Maybe I'm done for not taking the points, but I've already taken the points on 5 different other matchups. So I'll take the favorite in this one. That's how it works. There's a lot more good games than this. It's obviously rivalry week. There are so many. We just can't talk about them all, but Washington and Oregon are getting after it. Oklahoma and LSU. Like Wyoming's playing Washington State and Pullman. Like that's fun. Florida State.
There's some interesting like mid-major games out there. I believe Marshall and JMU are playing for a shot at the Sun Belt title.
Yes,
in Harrisonburg, so that'll be a good game. Marshall is 7-3. No, they're 8. They're what are they now? 8-3.
Yeah, Marshall's 8.
They're 8-3 now.
8-3.
Yeah, so 2 8-3 teams playing in Harrisonburg. No one cares, but like New Mexico is playing for a bowl game in Bronco Mendenhall's first year at one of, if not the toughest places to win in college football.
Yeah.
What a job Bronco Mendenhall has done there with the Lobos. So there are some interesting games out there.
I mean, and you got Scar and Clemson. You've got
Yeah.
North Carolina State, UNC.
NC State playing for a bowl game in that one.
Yeah.
That feels like it feels like that program's on a knife edge right now. That's an interesting rivalry game.
There's just so many fun ones, dude. Nevada and UNLV, Purdue and Indiana. Like, will one loss? Purdue has shown an ability to keep it close with certain decent teams. They have. Like, even a week ago, who did they just play tough? Well, it was Michigan State. But when they played Illinois, like, they damn near won that game.
Yep.
This is an in-state rivalry, Purdue and Indiana. Indiana just had a very depressing, perhaps crushing loss. Maybe Purdue does something. I don't know. But that's what makes this weekend great. And it's all surrounded by food and beer and football. And I'm looking forward to it, man.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And hopefully, you've got some good Thanksgiving plans this week. Are you sticking around local? Are you going somewhere? What's your deal?
I will be in Richmond with the family on Thursday, hanging out Friday, and we are headed to Blacksburg Saturday night into the frozen tundra.
And we're actually, Hokie Nation, you were just in Durham. We're going back to Durham for a soccer game.
Heck yeah.
Personally, but some of our
I'm not going back.
Our students are going there for a game because we made the Elite Eight in soccer for the women.
Yeah, crazy. What a performance going out on the road. A clean sheet against the number 3 team in the country. Heck of a job by the Lady Hokies on the soccer pitch.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, they're playing at Duke. I think it's Saturday night. We're in Durham. Saturday night. Do you know the opponent off the top of your head?
It's Duke.
It is Duke.
Okay. They play Duke. Yeah. 6 of the Elite 8 teams are from the ACC.
Yep. ACC kills Olympic sports. They just do.
Oh, you said you wanted to be good at football. Oh.
Well, guess what?
I thought you said foodie.
Yeah, you meant football. All right, that's going to do it for College Football Monday. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mike Holmes, for being on the show and giving some perspective on the playoff and Duke and UVA and all the stuff we got coming up. It's hate week. Make sure you're telling your UVA friends how much they suck this week, because they do suck. We're going to beat them once again, this time in Lane in front of fans, and I can't wait for it. Sam, have a great holiday. And until next time, go Hokies.
Beat UVA.